Shabbat shalom, everyone. We're gathered today on the 26th of July, 2025 on the Gregorian calendar, which happens to line up with the 16th of the fifth month on our Creator's calendar as we comprehend it, which is the 14th day of the counting towards new oil and new wood. We- We're taking a little segue again. I know we did that last week. We're going to continue with our theme here, but we had something come up in our discussions today and we want to cover something that we've talked about before, but I really want to help you go through it a little bit in detail so you can see how to do it for yourself and that it's nothing contrived by a man. It's nothing of anyone's own volition. It's literally just going by what is true and how it all can fit together to show the truth of what he was trying to say. I know that sounds confusing, but let me back up. We're going to cover Yobelim chapter 2, the creation account that is there specifically mentions 22 works in 6 days. It lines up with the book of Genesis, the recognitions of Clement. I believe it's in 4th Ezra, Baruch. It's alluded to in Hanok. There's places throughout the text of Scripture that talk about the things that he did during the 6 days of creation. What isn't so clear is that it's literally a parable of his works through history for 6,000 years before the millennial reign or the Sabbath, which we've talked about a lot. I've shared this once before, and we've gone over a summary of what it means. But today I want to try to dig in just a little bit to show you how that's done. So, the resource that I'm using here, and I recommend you use as many as you're familiar with and you're comfortable with and you know how to. The Strong's Concordance, Brown's Driver's Brig, eSword has these resources with concordances and dictionaries that you can use. There's interlinear scriptures that are available. And I also use Ernest Klein's Comprehensive Etymological Dictionary of the Hebrew Language here. I think this is an excellent resource. Um, but use what you have to find these things. Try to get more witnesses, two or more to confirm everything. And then you can know that what you have is established according to his word, right? So this is the main resource we're going to look at for definitions today, just for the purposes of what I have in mind. And then we're going to go ahead and look right here. This is a post from almost 10 years ago. It's been 9 years almost now, sorry. But this is talking about how the creation accounts line up, right? And I won't go into detail here, but I was telling you this is where you can look at the different versions and see what all is mentioned. Because what is clearly said in some places is just assumed to be true or acknowledged as real without being mentioned explicitly, right? But either way, for our purposes here, we wanted to go to the book of Yobelim, and this was almost 10 years ago. Like I said, I've learned a great deal. I used to think that the vowels in the Masoretic text were illegitimate, which they are. They were used to replace things and to change stuff. It was intentionally to mislead, but they also were meant to try to preserve the language for people who were losing it. It's a twofold thing, but that's what happens when you pervert the truth. You can't hold on to them. That's for a different thing. But you know, if you reject them, you can't have them at the same time. And those that cast him away are the ones that did this to the language. And they did violence to him before handing him over to Rome, who, if you know anything about what they did, they banned the language, destroyed the writings, and killed everyone that continued to speak it. So they did to him what they did to the language, what they did to his words, because it is the truth. We've talked about that before as well. But my point is, I didn't know how the vowels were to be reckoned I was not familiar with the full and defective spellings in a way that I was comfortable with. So, to the best of my knowledge, I did and spelled things the way I thought it was supposed to be. But this is no more than just doing whatever is right in your own mind because this had no basis to it. If we go by what is written and we learn from what's established, we can learn things. And the fact that the Hebrew language is what English came from is easy to see once you start really learning these things. The word fruit, for example, is literally pei, resh, wa, yod, tet. And then they put another tet at the end to make that one keep its sound instead of becoming a th. That's the normal usage of the language in spelling that doesn't change the pronunciation, but fruit is literally fruit, and it has been the entire time. There's dagger, there's thousands of words that we have. It's come straight from it, but we don't see that when we make believe things and we just make stuff up like this. So I'm sorry for ever doing stuff like that. I was learning. I did not promote this as anything like you must believe me, but it's what I thought was true. So in my innocence, he's helped me. And I hope that we can all be innocent and have his help forever. Because we certainly won't get it when we do things maliciously or evil. Excuse me. And just for the record, like Mashah here, Elohim there, you don't find the vowels most often in the Masoretic text. What they did is they would remove the vowel letters on one part of these letters and shorten them and use the vowel points to replace it. And that's what is the known phenomenon of full and defective spellings in the Masoretic text. You'll have one or two places in the scriptures where you have the full spelling of Elohim with a wa, Moshe with a wa, Noah with a wa, Dawid with the yod, right? Um, Yahushua with the second wa. You have Yahusuf with the Yahoo in front of his name instead of the Yo, right? You have a few places where you have the full spellings, and then everywhere else you have the defective spelling. In some instances, like every mention of Yahoo, where they removed his name because he took it out of their mouths as unworthy of it, and they put Yo instead of it. You don't find this correction all the time. But in most cases, and in the instance of our Mashiach's name, you have this phenomenon where Elohim, Moshe, Noach, Yahushua have one or two places with the full spelling, and then everywhere else they'll just substitute it with the vowel points. If you know that, then it makes pronunciation and not doing this nonsense a lot easier. But you still have to be careful because they have made it intentionally difficult to know what the proper pronunciation of words, certain words, should be. Our Creator's name is one of them. Hova, for example, is destruction. So, but that's a presumed pronunciation that they even have vowel points to prove. If you know that he says, don't bring my name to Shua or Schwa, right? And that Schwa is what they use to make it the ye sound in Yahoo with the yod with the schwa under the yod there. We're not supposed to do that. It's directly prohibited right there in the commandment, in every way. But aside from that, when we love the truth and we come to him like a child, we don't have presumptions and we don't have evil towards others. He knows our minds and he will bring us to the truth. If you know nothing else, you can rest assured that if you get your mind and heart right towards him, he will reveal himself to you. That's all that you have to do. Back on point here. This is the creation account from the book of Yobelim. We've read through it a few times. We've recorded it at least twice, I believe. And I'd like to show you something that you might not be familiar with here. We're not going to go through the whole thing because I don't know if we'll have time, but I would like to go through how you can determine or how you can interpret the parable. There's other videos that we covered about the fact that everything he's done is in parables and why it's legitimate to line these things up. But right here, I just want to show you you can take the thing created, okay? So on the first day, it would be the Shamayim, which are above, and then you look into that. Um, for our purposes here today, I don't know if we'll have time to go into every reference because I haven't looked them up and put them all together. But you find the references to the Shamayim above in Genesis 1, Yobelim 2. You'll find them in the ascension of Yeshayahu, or Isaiah as they call him. Before that, it's in the Testaments of Louis. You have them mention specifically the multiple Shamayim, also referenced in the Songs of the Sabbath sacrifices from the Dead Sea Scrolls, and there might be other writings that allude to them. I believe Irenaeus in his Against Heresies talks about the seven heavens. So you can look at all of those writings to get an idea of what these Shamayim which are above are all about. And I would recommend you do that. Then you would go to the letter Aleph, and you'd find out the dictionary definition here, which we're about to do. And then you would also go to the word Adam, the name for the first man, and look up the meaning of his name and everything involved in that, which we will do. And then you put it all together, and you can see how it's telling the truth, because that is something that has already happened in history. It is the first work, and we have Adam and the things that happened when first already recorded. So we can do that all the way through, even up into our times and our, almost the very end of creation, because we're living through the Sheen Tao works right before the millennial reign. I don't know if there is another time in history where you can see these things so clearly because most of them, or most all of it, is already past. But now that I've shared this part with you, give me just one moment. We're going to go back to the dictionary here, and then I don't really, I don't have my keyboard hooked up with the Hebrew here, so you have to forgive me. I'm going to have to scroll through here. I might pause the recording in between some of these just to make it easier, but I'll show you. And if anyone's doing this on their own, really, everyone has to do this the same thing, or excuse me, the same way. You'd get the book and you'd open it up. This particular book, and then here you start with the letter Aleph. So this particular book is affectionately called the Red Dictionary by myself, and I learned that from a brother named Eric Bissell. He's the first to bring this book to attention. He actually was the main contributor to help them start republishing it, if I remember correctly, because he was promoting it so much and he was really encouraging them to make more of them that he would get them to be sold, which I'm sure he has. I bought more than one copy myself. But he had a whole series of videos that he did where he went over every single letter and how it represents the truth and our Mashiach and some amazing things. You can look at those if you'd like to. I'd say I first learned about this connection from him. He has a chart. I have the chart. I have it hanging up in a frame. I even got one for my friend, my brother. I gave one away, I believe. But I first learned about how these things could be lined up from him on the chart that he made, and it was pretty amazing. Anyone can look at it. The only problem is that the chart is lined up to something other than the Book of Yobelim and the things that are written and how that's lined up there. So I've never brought it to his attention that I'm aware of. I've never argued about it because I don't like to be disrespectful. I'm not rude or anything like that. It's not my nature. But when this is brought to my attention, I have been trying to share it. I'm hoping that some people more qualified or able can take these things and really dig in and show people these things in truth because it's amazing. Once you see this stuff, You see how powerful the language is, the meanings of the words in Hebrew specifically. You can see how trustworthy he is in saying the truth. And that this stuff is literally reality, right? But right here, Aleph is the first letter, right? So called the illusion of its form representing the head of an ox. And in the paleo, it looks like an ox head and the upside down or an angled A, right? With the horns and everything. That's what it's alluding to. But it also means the definition of the meaning of the words is what it alludes to as well, which it is an ox or cattle. And we'll get there in just a moment. So you can see that aluf or aleph is how we have to look up the spelling there. And that's what you do. Then you would go to aleph lamed wa pe or aleph lamed pe and then see the meanings of the words there. And then write them down, get them all together, and keep it. It comes in handy because it ties together with what he's meant to do or what he's trying to show us here. So please forgive me. We'll scroll right here. We're looking for Aleph Lamed. And then just like any dictionary, if you're familiar with it, it's AL. So Aleph Lamed, then Wa. Once we get there up here, then you'll know we can keep looking. And if you're familiar with the alphabet, just like your ABCs, it makes it easier. There. So here's Aleph Lamed Hey. There's Aleph Lamed. Here's the Wa. And then you want the Pei here. So here's the word Aleph, the first one. And it's pronounced Aluf, right? But it means chief of a tribe, intimate friend, master. And they say that this is modern Hebrew for here. Sometimes they'll have modern or post-biblical, and like right here, PBH. That is true on most occasions, but sometimes they'll have words that you can find in the scriptures that have that, and I don't know why they put it. They make it seem like it's after the scriptures when it isn't. This means new Hebrew, and this would be a rank in the Israeli army. It's the same word, but it's a new use of it. All right. Champion in a sport, that's a new use. So I don't give these as much credence, but you have to keep in mind, I really want you to, Yahushua is the truth, and everything that is the truth. You can't have something that exists and not have it be true. Whether it's true because it was here, it doesn't mean it's actually of him, though, because Satan is true. He's real, he exists, but he's not of him. He has nothing to do with him. All right. He's the one that is the liar. So that's the distinction between what is from him and what is not from him. Yahuwah is always true. Demons are not. Satan is not. Right? So the meanings of these words are related. It's the truth, but this isn't directly related to the meaning in his definition for scripture. I want just to make that clear. It might go in line with it because it's an aleph is an aleph, and large is large. When it has bigness or when it's implied in size or significance, it's still the same intrinsic meaning. I hope you can get that, right? It's a different usage, same meaning. This is what Eric Bissell goes over. He really covers the nuances of the words and how the living languages have changed. I'm not really into all that. It's not it's not something that I've been gifted with, if you will. I just see the connections here when you take the meanings of these words and put it together like a child with what he said. So right here you can see an aleph is a bullock or a cow. It is the ox, if you will, or the bull. It also means taming or domesticating. And it says that it's the verbal noun of Aleph, and you can see Aleph for the meaning of this to be tame or domesticated, as we will see. And then that's all we have for right here. So then we continue, and this is what you have to do. If you're looking at a Strong's dictionary, whether online or in the book itself, you'll have to flip through to multiple different Strong's numbers of different varieties with different spellings to get the whole sense of the word. The reason why I prefer this book over the Strong's is because you can look up the letters here and you get multiple definitions all on the same page. Whereas with that one, you have to go, it's a lot more work. It's a lot harder to do, but it's still possible. Okay. So give me just one moment. Now we have Aleph here. Let me see if it begins down there. Yes. Okay. So Aleph Lamed Pei, and you can see it has multiple definitions here. We're going to look at them all. It's the base probable or meaning original to be linked together. Aleph Lamed Pei. Okay. The original means to be linked together, be connected. All right. In Akkadian, which is a related Semitic language, the Ulapu, which is their Aleph, means a band, something that's joined together, connected, right? And a similar word is a ship, whence arose the meanings to join, be familiar with, which is where we get the acquaintance. The familiar with was accustomed to or learned. And when you're learned, you are tamed or domesticated. So these are the inherent growth of the meaning in its use based on the breakdown of Aleph, Lamed, Pei. And when you look at those, which is something we can do at a different time because it takes a little bit more involvement here, but Aleph as a prefix means I am or I will. Lamed, and we looked at it. This is the meaning, right? Domesticated, trained to be familiar with. But I am, I will. Lamed is like a shepherd's goad. It means to teach, learn, goad, poke, pull, to push or pull, to direct, if you will. And then pay is the open mouth. So I will direct with my mouth, or I will teach and learn with my mouth to be joined together and connected, to be familiar with, to be acquainted, to be trained, or to teach, tame, and domesticate. Pretty simple so far, right? Now, that's when you look at the meanings of those. The aleph here is in the use of the word in the language itself. As a prefix, it means I am or I will. And then the lamed is the use of that word as its meaning in the letter itself. And the same thing with this one. But that's the breakdown of it. And when you put that together, it means these things. To be joined together, to be familiar with, or like an intimate friend, right? It says, but there's a loving one closer than a brother in scriptures. That would be the Aleph, the one that we should have be holding in our hearts, right? It means he trained, he taught, he domesticated, was trained, was taught, was tamed, was domesticated. And that's why ox, bull, cattle, right? Those that are domesticated and trained. It means to bring forth thousands in the same manner as the other by teaching with his mouth. It means 1,000, and Aleph is also one. So one or 1,000. And if you all recall, this isn't directly related here, but the Alphim or the Alephs of the congregation of the men over thousands in scripture as established by Moshe are what became our sheriffs in today's counties in America and in the common law countries of the world. but it's the thousand. Then you go right here. It is oxen, bullocks, cows, or cattle. Basically, those that are domesticated and trained, the tamed animals, right? An aleph, an iluf, right, right there, is also part of a tribe. And a different way that you pronounce this is like elef, which is like an elephant, elephant. That word is where we get the mighty or large creature there. But like the chief of a tribe, right? Anyways, the part of a tribe, the Aleph, right? Meaning of a thousand. And it's also the name of the first letter of the Hebrew alphabet, so called to the allusion to the ancient Hebrew form of this letter. All right. And then it doesn't really go with any more information there. So then you tie those all together. I will teach and learn with my mouth to train and domesticate, to bring forth thousands, to be familiar with, to be close and familiar with. And that lines up with the highest Shamayim and the literal first work that he's done. And in the beginning, he made all creation and he planted Adam in the garden and taught him to guard it. He taught him with his voice, the voice of Yahuwah in the garden, teaching him to guard the things that were there. The very things that you can see in the Aleph, in the very breakdown of the words, and in the meaning of it throughout. So that was the first, right? And then you can do that with every letter and with every name. Now, the name that's associated with this one would be Adam. So we'll take a look at that real quick. And then we'll move on to Bet. And I'll try to show you those. We'll go as far as we can for a little while here, but I want you to see you do this with each one. You line it up, you write them down, and then you look at how it was performed in history, what happened, and you can see the sense of it. You don't have to make things up. You don't add anything. You don't take anything away. You just use what is there, the information, the truth as given. All right. So real quick, Adam in Hebrew is Aleph Dalet Mem. All right, we'll start with that one, and then we'll look at the derivatives because there are a few and they have significant meanings that are all applicable. You might be familiar with some of them already, like Adam being from the ground or earth, and Adamah with a hay being the word for earth or ground. Not not earth like a ball, but earth like land, dirt under your feet. So right here you have Aleph, Dalet, Mem. The instinctive or the intrinsic meaning they say is to be read. In Arabic, it's Adima, right? Ethiopian Adama was read. Ugaritic is Adam, to be read. And they use that apostrophe as the guttural letters Aleph, Ayin, Chet, and a few others. They don't, or Aleph and Ayin specifically, they do that with on some languages. Ugaritic, for example, or if you're not familiar, is literally the Hebrew language with different characters. It is identical to Hebrew otherwise. I believe there might be one letter extra, kind of like the Phoenician, but I might be mistaken on that. And I was rather surprised to learn that. But it is considered Semitic language, and the only difference between it and the Hebrew is the characters they use for their letters. This is the probable original related to Dam, Dalet, Mame, blood, and literal meaning to be of the color of blood. Adam, I am blood, or I am blood. I will bleed, I am blood. This is I am like blood, right? To be red. But Adam, and then Edom, if you remember, is red, and that was from the porridge that he wanted. But it was reddened and it's to be red. It's also man, mankind, Adam. the name of the first man. Now, the only other relation, like I'd mentioned to you, are related words. And another breakdown of this one is if you have Dama, if you put another mem here and an aleph, it's Adama is I will resemble or I will be like. And that is a related usage that is used by Irenaeus, and it is also used, um, it's actually the name of the first Buddha, if you will. The Scythians, part of the northern kingdom that was taken into dispersion, most likely from the sons of Louis, because they're the ones that were given the religious predominance or preference of the people. They're the ones that became the Druids. They're the ones that founded the false religions there, and most likely also with Buddhism. But a Scythian named Yahu Dhamma, which is Yahuwah like, was the one who founded the Budai or exiles and their remembrance of no longer being able to do sacrifices with the sacred fire, which is something we've all already mentioned. But that Dhamma here is the other word that we're going to look at in just a moment. The first thing we want to see is when you put a hey at the end, you can see that it means earth. No, I might have already passed that part. Here we go. Sorry, I skipped it. So Aleph, Dalet, Mem, He is ground, soil, earth, land. And it's from Adam to be red, the original denoting the red, arable ground. Okay. And then if you give me just a moment, we're gonna have to find Dhamma. I do believe that is Dalet, Mem, Mem, Aleph. But let me look. And this is part of how you have to look at things. If you're not familiar with the Hebrew, it's harder to do, obviously, because you're not going to know what words are related to others. I don't know all the different nuances of the words yet. I can't even say that Eric Bissell knows them all. You learn these things by study, taking time and looking. The more you spend in the Word, the more He will reveal these things to you as His peculiar gift to you. But it's easier to comprehend these things and see them if you believe it's true. And all you have to do is look at the Bible for that. Just look at what he says in regard to himself, who he is, what he does, and then take him for, take him for what he says. He means it in every way that he said to. We're on Dalet right now. I'm trying to find Dalet Mem. All right. So dam by itself is just blood, if we'll find that here. Yeah. Blood, bloodshed, blood, guilt is how they have that. And then when you go Dalet Mem, Mem Aleph, I believe. See, Dalet Mem Mem is to grow or to be or grow dumb or silent. Right? To bleed, bleeding. All right, we want Dalet Mem that to shed tears. All right, so perhaps it's just Dalet Mem Aleph and they doubled that on its own. Give me just one moment. I want to make sure it's not iron there. Yeah, it's not iron. And this is something that they often do. We've talked about it where they'll double a letter. Yeah, see, it's not showing right here. Hold on a moment. Seeming apparent, sure, certain. Yeah. All right, just one second here. I want to. All right, so like I said, I don't know everything, all the nuances of where you'd find words, and this is part of it. But when you're in doubt or when you don't know, you just look it up, right? This is a great thing about modern age today. So I just typed in likeness in Hebrew and it gave me Damuth. Da, this is what I was talking about right here, by the way. You see this Dalet, it has the Dagesh forte here, which is the hardening Dagesh that makes that the D sound proper. And then it has a schwa. That schwa is what they say makes that E sound. But when you look at the classical biblical Hebrew, the grammars and whatnot, the schwa and every half vowel in the Hebrew text always makes the A, ah, as in about, A as in about, ah. So it's damuth, not a D, E. And that's a deception that they promote today. But besides that, this word damuth is how they have it spelled here, and this is a suffix, a different type of ending. So I went back to the dictionary and then I figured that it might have a hey here, and this is exactly where it is. You can have a tau, you can have an hey that can double with an aleph at the end or just an ah sound, which is that like that Yahoo Dama, right there, to be like Yahuwah. The only difference in what you'll find, all that information about the Buddha and the fact that he was called Yahoo Dama can be looked up in a book called The Saxons from the East and or The Saxons of the East and of the West. It's a book that talks about where the different waves of the Hebrews went in dispersion over time, specifically focusing on the northern kingdom when it went into captivity. And he covers this stuff pretty well. But the words were written with the Hebrew language in the Sanskrit or Indian characters. You have to transliterate it back into the Hebrew and read it that way to have it make any sense. And he got these inscriptions from temple walls and things all over India and everywhere where the Hebrews were there creating this religion. But that's another digression. Please forgive me. Back on point here, you can see that dema here means to be like, to resemble, to be equal in value. So I am equal in value, right? I am created like or to be resembling the one who made him. That was the whole point. And while he was to be like and resembling him, it mentions directly in Genesis chapter 1 that he was created in his image and his likeness. And then in the image of Elohim created he them, meaning that the likeness is something that's happening over time, and it's that perfection that we're coming to. But they also have Dama as to cease or stop right here. In New Hebrew, it means dummy, because if you cease or stop, you're not speaking, right? And silence, right? Now, they have it as silence as a hapax legomenon. That means that this is the only time that word is used anywhere in Scripture. And they mean with these particular vowel points, making it that pronunciation. Whether or not it really said it that way before, or it has this different meaning and it doesn't just mean this, I can't tell you. But when they have hapax legomemnon in there, that's what that means. It's only use in all of Scripture. Okay? But here you go. You can see that Adam means I will be like or resemble, and I will bleed of red or of the earth. All these things are literally true. All these things are in him, and what was part of that first work. The one who is to be like him was to do so by being taught to be domesticated, all of them going together, right? So, ob willing, you can see how all of these things, while seemingly out there, all coalesce into the truth of what is actually revealed. Now, if you were to go over this and write it down and put it in a more logical format, it would make more sense to you. And that's something that we did in the summary version, which we've gone over. I'm not trying to do that again for you. I'm just trying to show you and everybody the nitty-gritty for how it's broken down, right? If you want to do this bit by bit, this is how you do it. The next section, right, we'd be on is Bet, the second creation, and then the second name, the next patriarch in order. So Baith, which lines up with the earth, and then who came after. You can say Abel, but in the 22 patriarchs, that one doesn't line up. That one, there's a thing with Cain and Abel, those are separated. The next in line would be Seth, or what we say set, which is to place or put a thing in order, right? But we'll look at that. And that's where we get the word set in English is his name Seth means to place or to set or put. And then the letter Baith. All right. So give me just one moment. I'm going to go ahead and pause this here so we're not wasting time, and then I'll pick up once we get there. All right. So here's the letter Baith, and then we'll get to the spelling of it. But Beth, Bait, right here, you can see, well, it doesn't have it. Anyways, it's supposed to be Bait Yod Tau, and that's how you spell the letter. We'll get to it in just a minute. But it's the second letter of Hebrew, Baith, literally house, so called in allusion to the ancient form of this letter. And if you look at it, it's meant to be like the pattern of a tent, the layout of a house back in the day. That's the Baith and what it represented. There's no mystical, hidden, supernatural, fictitious meanings for these letters. It's literally a picture of a thing and then what it represents and the meanings of them as defined and known. So we're not guessing all these things or making up implied stuff. I really want you to get that. If it's not written here, it's not to be acknowledged in relation to what he said, because we only want to go by what is true, demonstrably provable. Okay? But it means house, and it's alluding to the ancient figure. Baith as a preposition, meaning when you put it in the beginning of a word, which in the Hebrew language, prefixes and suffixes to words are often, but not always, other words themselves can become prefixes. They can be attached to words themselves. You can have an entire sentence in a single word in Hebrew based on how this works. Like, I love you is ahavka, just one word, but it's the entire sentence. You can do that in this word. There's actually a word for that phenomenon. I don't remember it. But the point is, you can have certain letters when they're attached to the beginning or the end of words, they have significance, they have a certain meaning that you can use. It doesn't mean that that's always how it's meant to be used. But when you break down the letters, that's always the intrinsic meaning if it's at the beginning. Like this means he who comes, he who arrives, or coming. In I am, in I will, right? There's when you break that down, there's different, that's like coming out of the house, it's he who comes. There's different pictures you can see in these things that make the meaning plain, and it's in the breakdown of the letters. So that is legitimate, that is true. You can see it just by looking at what it means and seeing how it breaks down. You don't have to do anything special. But that is how the language literally builds things into reality. That's how his word is the basis of all creation. That's how Adam can say a thing and call it a name, and the name could be what it is, because he's saying it's literal what it is. I know that doesn't make a lot of sense. A dog is all heart, right? We have a name for it today for shameful for female dog. The name for shame, bish, in Hebrew became the word for a female dog in English because of the sense of it, the name's meaning. We do that with everything. So that's the normal usage. That's all I'm trying to show you. How the English language works is how the Hebrew works. It's just this is the pure form. English is that perverted stuff down the river, right? Near the ocean. Or in a better sense, you could say it's the living language that has changed over time. But back on point. Bet as a prefix means in, within, among. It could be on, but not necessarily above. Okay. On the altar is with it, not necessarily above or as in a higher position. It can be for, like for the price, or for the full price, right? Or as, meaning as in the condition of, as my help. So bet can have significance, but that's all related to like the house, to be in or within. It's the place of your help, right? Now you look at yod tau together with the bait, and we'll see what the meaning of that is. Yod is the 10th letter. It is the working hand. It means that he, as a prefix, it means he will or he is. That's the one doing the work, if you will. And then the tau is the sign, like the X marks the spot, right? It's the sign of the covenant. But it's also the aleph is the ox and the tau is the mark, and the ox is going right to it when they plow the field. That's literally how things work in reality. It's how he made creation to function, and part of the intrinsic meaning of his language there, that he will accomplish the thing he set forth to do. Forgive me here, but tet, next one is yod, and then you can see bet yod right here. They have his house or home. But this is from the Talmud or Midrash. They've dropped the Tau. That's not something that is in the scriptures. This word in scripture, though, means in me or please, I pray. It's a petition. And then the covenant, right? That's a foreign word, so this is just by. That's nothing. They'll have that, though. And this is the benefit. I say it's nothing, and I mean that in regards to our purposes here. For what we're trying to understand and what these words mean related to his word in scripture and the definitions of them, this doesn't have any meaning. In reality, this word in a foreign use means by, and that's exactly its use. That's where it's at, and he put it there because that was how they use it for that purpose. I'm not trying to discredit that. I'm not trying to say that the language that they speak is illegitimate. It's just a living language like English is that's changed over time. It is not the same as it was before, just like English is not the same as the Hebrew it was before. Right here, Bet Yod, we want to get to Bet Yod Tau, which is the last letter of the alphabet, right after Sheen here. Here you go. So you have Beth, right, and Betim for plural there, but it means house, home, family, school. For modern Hebrew, it's the stanza of a poem, right? And then the related languages and their words there that all mean house, okay? It's the name of the second letter of the Hebrew alphabet, house, so called in allusion to the ancient form of this letter representing a house. All right. And it's the equivalent, it's the second element to the aleph beth. Just like we have aleph bet in English, it's the aleph beth originally. Another similar and equal meaning to house is domesticate or domesticated and tamed. So the ones that have become domesticated by the aleph through training with his mouth have now come into the house. which is the earth or the land that was given to them. And when you look at what scripture says, this is what the part that we're not doing that you really need to on your own. You take the thing created, the earth, and look up every reference to it. What is the land? What is the earth in scripture? It's what the meek will inherit. It's what the perfect will be left in. It's what will be burned with fire and recreated to be given to the chosen, where the wicked will not be in his presence. This is the earth that will belong to those that are domesticated and tamed by the Aleph. In these first two letters, you get the plan of salvation, if you will, and the whole purpose of it. But there's more. It goes on in detail and it really digs in. When you, if any of you take the time to look at Eric Bissell's stuff on the Aleph Bet, he goes into each letter and how it points to our Mashiach in an entirely different way that is also relevant and true and meaningful. I'm not saying that it's wrong. It has nothing to do with this, but it goes right in line with it. Okay? So it's the manifold wisdoms of Elohim to reveal these things in such a manner. My premise is that we don't have to go beyond what is written. We don't have to think things up or make anything of ourselves. You can literally just look at these things, compare it to what is, and see that it's true. So domesticate, tamed, domesticated. Beta with the aleph at the end there is the Greek form of the letter. All right. Now you tie them all together, which I kind of just did for you before we got there. Beit is the earth, the place that is for the tame, those that are domesticated, that the meek will inherit, the perfect will be left in. And it's in Bet Yod working Tau, the covenant. In working the covenant, you become domesticated and trained. You become a member of his house that inherits the earth. That's the truth. And that's what it was established after the fall of mankind. If you look at it, the next thing that he did, the fall of man in the garden, he gave man to till the ground, to work the earth, and to do these things in the land to work towards a better future in working the covenant, right? The things that he was established in. So you can see that the patterns keep fitting. There's an overarching story, and there's the literal event that happened. The same kind of foretellings that you have all throughout a physical, literal first, and a spiritual second, larger scale one, right? And then you tie this up with Seth, which we already talked about, but Set or Seth means to place or appoint, and this is what was appointed after mankind sinned. In working the covenant, it's the, I'm sorry, the other thing about the earth, it mentions in the apostolic constitutions that it is the place of the combat to righteousness in working the covenant. That's how you tie it all together. This is our place where we're working to become righteous, his pleasing possession, because all of us have fallen short. We're all learning, we're all trying to become comprehending in these things, which is Binah, his bone or building and structure, to be one flesh with him, right? That perfect bride that he's looking for. But real quick, you go to Seth or Set, which would be Sheen, one of the last letters in the alphabet there, Kofresh, Sheen, and then Tau. But you have Sheen, Yod, Tau for Seth or Set. So here's Sheen Wa, and just a few more. All right, right after the Tet there, I went too far. Kaf is like our K, so the Y or the I comes right beforehand, right? There we go. Went too far. Sorry. So right here, set means to set, put, place, lay, to put in place, to lay, right? To set up, to establish, constituted. He made, he laid, he placed, he established. That's what it means. And it's literally to set up, which is what he did when he made set instead of Hevel, setting him up in place of the son that had fallen. They also have it as a garment, right? To put or place, and you put your garment on that which is put on, right? And then it means foundation, right? In the temple, a pit beside the altar for libations, right? The place to put something. Post-biblical Hebrew, they have it as the early fig. It also is a thorn bush, mostly occurring together with shadid or shamid, sorry, or shamir. I can't tell if that's a resh or a dalet there. And then you can see Shin Yod Tet Hey is modern Hebrew. The Hey is to reveal or to do a thing, to make evident or to reveal it. And that would be a putting or a placing. It's the doing of it that you can perceive. So the point is that set or this thing, the earth being established as the place to combat to righteousness, where you're working the covenant to later be the meek, pleasant possession of the one who will let you inherit it, is what was set up or put in place after the fall. And you can go back and read that, right? So then you move on to the next one, which would be Gimel. Gimel is where we get the word for camel in English. Gimel means camel. It has other meanings to it as well, as we're going to see, but that is a direct word relation that you can still carry on, just like the others that we were covering. But the Gimel is the thing that goes out and then comes back with the reward. There's three types of reward in Hebrew. We've covered them before. I'll cover them again real quick. You have shalom, the greatest, which from the Father down to you, shalom reward. You have um, Gimal, like Gimel here, which is like a boomerang you throw out and then you come back with your prize. Or you send your camels out with your goods, the things that you are doing, and then after a time it's reciprocated. You get it back. Another way of looking at this is we're going to see here as it lines up with the waters is think about a pool of water. You agitate part of that water and it's going to send ripples out every direction, everywhere it goes. And eventually those ripples are going to bounce back off of something and come back at you. It might be different ways at different times from different areas, but it's going to come back reciprocal from every direction. And you're going to reap the thing that you sow in such a capacity. That's how you can see the gimel there related to the waters in relation to recompense or reward. The third one is in Akob, or the name like Jacob, Jacob, they say. But Akob is the hill. It means supplanter as well, but it's literally what comes at the hill of what you're doing. It's immediate reciprocity. And that is given to people who are like Jacob. Look at his witness in Yob Elim about his personal character, how he thinks, acts, and is. And then you can see he never held malicious intent for anyone. He did things what he thought was in the best interest and true. And because of that, he was immediately in this life and quickly corrected for the things that he did wrong. Jacob, he was rewarded or chastised for his things that he had done because he did them without malicious intent and in his simplicity. Okay? You can read about what happened in his life to see how those things actually played out. And then you can see the different types of rewards here. But this kind of gimel is the rewards, and it lines up with waters. Okay. So then we go to the dictionary. And then the third letter, the third name there would be Enosh, if I remember correctly. So we go to Gimel, and you give me just one moment. I'm going to go ahead and pause and I'll get to the beginning of it real quick. Okay, so we already looked on there and we saw that the Gimel, the third work, lines up with the waters. Now, in the book of Bereshit, it does not explicitly mention the waters as being created. And some people have taken this and gone off into some very weird directions with it, saying that it predates creation and there's some mystical things with water, and there's a whole bunch of doctrines and ignorant opinions that men have professed because it isn't explicitly mentioned in the Bible. But it is in Yobelim, or it's not explicitly mentioned in Genesis, but it is in Yobelim, and it is even in the Bible when you think that it says all his works, including waters, are mentioned in the Psalms and other places. There is nothing that is created that was not made by Mashiach, is directly mentioned. In him all things are made and held together. That includes water. So the fact that these things are plainly spoken of as being created are there. But because it is not explicitly mentioned in this particular area of Genesis, Satan has allowed men to uh, teach errors there so that others might believe them. And it is an error when you can prove from the Bible by itself that water is a thing and it was created, just like I just did. It cannot be otherwise. You can't have two things contrary be in agreement. So when you see that the scriptures say that water is created and all things were made by him, and then you see in the book of Yobelim that indeed it is the third work, the letter Gimel associated, and everything related to it will make sense in just a moment, then you can't be deceived by these things anymore. And that's the important part of learning the foundation of how the Hebrew and the creation and all this, his works in history have been working. So Aleph Bet Gimel, we might get to Dalet here, the prescribed order, right? The Aleph Bet, as you saw there in that beginning definition. But the letter Gimel here is the third letter. Its name is Gimel, so called an allusion to the ancient form of this letter representing the neck of a Gamal, a camel. Now he says it's the neck of a camel. It's also been written like it's a foot or um, a throwing stick is what they called it in the Middle East, but we'd know it as a boomerang, which people get offended at. But Yahusef had a boomerang in Egypt. The statue of him that was found has a boomerang symbol. It was a known thing for Middle Eastern people to have. Uh, whether you want to be offended by it or not, that was representative of the Gimel as well. It became a camel. It's also the throwing stick there. That meaning might not be inherent or mentioned anywhere here, though, just so you know. But it is mentioned by Eric Bissell, and it is known that throwing stick is shown to be a phenomenon in the documentary about the Exodus, Patterns of Evidence. So I recommend you look at that if you'd like to see information on it. But right here, it does not have a prefix meaning, right? You don't have this at the beginning of a word to have an intrinsic meaning to anything that I'm familiar with. Usually, but not always, it will show you right here in the beginning of each entry. If that's the case, it did not do it for Aleph. Some of these words, you only find that out by looking at the text itself. When you look at the Hebrew, when you look at the scriptures and you're reading it, it has an Aleph as a prefix meaning I before lots of words. It's just the way the language works. You learn that through the use of reading the scriptures itself, not here. Others are actually in here though, but some of them you have to learn that way. That's just how it works. I don't know of any place where they have all of them written out plainly. It would be nice, but I'm not familiar with it. It might be in the grammar, the student grammar that I have. I'll check that and let you know. But either way, you can see that it's Gimel Mem Lamed, and there's also a derivative spelling of Gimel, like Gimel, Gimel Yod Mem Lamed, or Gimel Mem Yod Lamed. So just give me one moment and we'll look at all of those to see what we can find. Okay? I think the first one we're going to come across is Gimel Yod Mem Lamed. There you go. It's Gimel Yod Mem Wa Lamed right here. They have post-biblical Hebrew, so this is afterwards, and that's the kind of muzzle for a calf. I don't, because if you look here, Gimel Mem Lamed, Gamal, literally means to wean. And this is the significance here that we'll get to in just a minute. But Yigmal, if you put a yod in front of it, is he will, or he is weaning, or he will wean, and it's to wean a child. Um, we'll get back to that for its significance here in just a moment because it's related to how this plays out in history for what he's done. But you can see that the recompense, like a camel or boomerang, also has to do with the rearing or weaning of children, of a child. Right here, Gimel Yod Mem Lamed is the name of the Hebrew letter. It's related to Gimel Mem Lamed, so called for the illusion of its ancient form representing the neck of a camel, it says. Right? Gamma, the gamma of Greek. And then we go to Gimel Mem Lamed itself. This is why we don't normally do these things on a Shabbat study. This would be something that if we really wanted to dig into together, we'd do on a weekday where we can really crack down. It, this is the nitty-gritty. While it's a wonderful way to learn the language, to see the truth of creation, it is more of a grind study thing, if you can tell. I went too far, so please forgive me. I find these things to be amazing. When I was first learning this, I really didn't even get the significance of it until um, well, until we did the Gimel Dalet study. He put it in my mind to look up these words, and then when I started seeing all these different words with spellings that had Gimel Dalet in it, Gimel Dalet Aleph, Gimel Dalet Ayin, Gimel Dalet Mem, Gimel Dalet Pei, like to be on your mouth is that Gadfan is literally blaspheme, right? When I learned those things, I was literally shocked. He impressed upon my mind the significance of the Hebrew language and just what all these things meant together. And then after that, I started taking this a lot more seriously. Right here, Gimel Mem Lamed, its first means to ripen, to wean. The original meaning of this base probably was to become complete. Hence, like the going out and then coming back with the reward, the ripening of it. You develop and birth the child, you raise, you feed, you nourish, you take care of, and then they're weaned. And after they're weaned, then you start to reap the reciprocation for things. But that's different. We're going to see that in just a moment. But you see, it means to be complete. Hence, it is related to the Arab Kamala was whole, was complete. Gamal, Kamala, right? And Git Malu or perfect for Akkadian, right? It means it ripened or it weaned. which was, you could say, completing it, right? When the bananas ripened, it was ripened or weaned. He weaned himself of something. It is also to pay, reward, recompense. Like I was telling you, the reward, like a camel going out with the goods that you're selling and then coming back with your money. Or you're throwing out the boomerang to cut off the bananas from the tree and then having it come return and you have your reward. Or you make the ripples in the water, they come back to you. It's that recompense there, okay? He collected, was beautiful, was handsome, and that's related to the Arabic word here. The Akkadian here is to spare, forgive, or give, to repay, right? He did so, rendered to, he repaid or rewarded or recompensed. The word is also camel, literally where we get the word camel. The gimel became, the G here became a C for English speaking. Post-biblical, not important there. And that is the end of those definitions. You can see you have the yod there is to be camel-like. That's in modern Hebrew. It's an adjective. So for our purposes here, we have the meaning, and then we want to look at, we already have the waters there. The waters were in place, and then the meaning of the name Enosh, if you remember, um, it means to be mortal, but to imply weakness or infirmity. We've covered that before. Um, Let me find it real quick. I believe that's Aleph Noon. Oh, I went too far. Wa Sheen. And if you guys have any comments or questions, you can feel free to ask them while I'm searching through there. But Aleph Noon Hey is to lament, mourn, or groan. So Anah and Inosh is a related. Anan is mournful, sad, or gloomy. Um, Anu, there is we, right? Anachnu is the full form of the word for like we, I believe. Enosh, right here. Enosh means people or mankind, like Adam was man. Enosh means man, but more like people or nation. The sense though is in incurable, weak, mortal, right? There is something deficient, not no longer in a perfect state. This is modern Hebrew, right? But you can see it means to be humane or man. That human we've gone over, it's not something that we ought to call ourselves, but man, it means to be mortal or infirm. So the third work, the waters, the recompense, to the thing that showed us to be mortal and infirm, what happened after Adam and everything perfect in the garden, and then they sinned. Our Creator sent them out and made them work the land to which they had to combat to righteousness. And then you had what happened with what? Cain and Abel. The next work that he did was his giving them children. He weaned the child and then he reaped the thing that he had sown like a gimel, the recompense for his actions in casting out the truth and killing the firstborn of the Most High. He has it reciprocated in his life by his own children. That's the weaning that brought the gimel. And the Yagmol is right there in the scriptures for this very phenomenon, the very first use of the word tied to these very events. You can find that with most of these things, where the letter itself is being used at the very event for the thing it's foretelling. Another example is the letter Cheth, the eighth letter lining up with the only work in the second day, the firmament, which is a separation or a divider. separating the waters. And it lines up with the flood, where there was a container for all the living creatures, which is literally spelled Chet, Chet Yod Tau, the very word used for that letter at that time for those creatures being saved in the ark, all representative. But see, I'm getting ahead of myself here. You can do this with all of these things, and I highly encourage you to dig in because the manifold wisdom of our Creator is so amazing. We cannot outdo Him. It's really just take it, sit down, and look at it in amazement. Dig in, and you will certainly become a honest believer, right? And then you'll not only know the things that He's done, but what He is actively doing and the intention behind it, because it's all right here. And He teaches those that come to Him. All right. So Um, the next one, moving on. Sorry, how this all ties together. We already were on, yeah, that one. Please forgive me. We already covered how that works together. So the next work, the letter Dalet, lines up with all the spirits which serve before him. And I usually rush over this section, but I really want to talk to people about it real quick. We overlook things in creation today. We don't really consider how much of the unseen world is all around us that proves spirits exist because we take these phenomenon for granted in ways that we've been told that just aren't true. Um, there is no phenomenon that is in creation that's worked by a non-entity. Everything has messengers and principalities over it that our Creator has given dominion to accomplish tasks, whether it's the seasons, the appointment of where lights are in the sky, winds blowing on the earth, waves moving in the sea, things heating or cooling, chemical reactions, magnetism. All of this stuff is spiritual. All of these are messengers accomplishing tasks they were given to do. None of it is a disembodied phenomenon that just happens, as is explained by modern science. Those are secular humanistic explanations for spiritual things because they don't acknowledge spiritual things. It is intentionally atheistic. I hope that makes sense. That should help everybody like open your eyes and mind to the fact that messengers are literally all around operating the functions of creation for our benefit. They are ministering to mankind and they are obedient to your will when you are obedient to your Maker's will. This is the key. When you're not, they're not. You get the leadership, you get the government you deserve. We're only part of two kingdoms, and we freely choose which one we partake of by our obedience to the one we want to belong to. So, right here, now that that's said, I just want to go over what he lists these messengers are for and think about it. All of these functions are outside of what a man does that are affecting reality. It is happening by entities, not by just happenstance or chance or magnetism or whatever. Living creatures given creation and dominion and command to do a thing and operating in obedience to the one that gave them commands. That's the important thing I want you to keep in mind. So Dalet we'll look at, but delta in the Greek, it's a change of state. In mathematics, you use the Dalet as a change of state from one to another. It's literally the door. The doorway is where you go from one state to another, from in the house to outside of it, or from one thing to another. It's a decision point. It's a change of state. That is the Dalet. But we'll go into the Hebrew as well, and you'll see that it is the door, and it represents those things. But that is all the spirits or ruachoth which serve before him, the messengers of the presence, which are people want to say it's the four living creatures, but I don't, that they're separate and distinct. They have their own reason for being. The messengers of his presence are the seven that are always before the face of the king, as it mentions that their seats are on either side of his throne in Gad the seer, and they're literally the ones that are before him in righteous counsel, the archangels, if you will, or chief messengers, as explicitly named in Hanok and talked about in other places, Mikael being the chief among them. Raphael, uh, where was that? Oriel, there's a few others, right? There's seven of them total. Then you have the Melachim of sanctification, which they're the only ones other than the messengers of the presence which are enjoined to keep the Sabbath perpetually. But aside from that, we don't have everything about them, just that they are a second order before him, right? And the messengers of the Ruach of fire, and the messengers of the Ruach of the winds, and the messenger of the Ruach of the clouds, and of darkness, and of snow, and of hail, and of hoarfrost, and the messenger of the voices, okay, the voices as distinct from the thunder and the lightning, which trumpet sounds when you hear them, the voices and the sounds of fighting and other things, the phenomenon that you've heard over time, both as fulfilled in Revelation and in history. These are the voices that spoke and the people heard. These are the voices that are being talked about here. These messengers that he made to perform these things are for his purposes, but they're living entities. Okay. When they heard the voice saying, "This is my beloved in whom I'm well pleased," it was a messenger, it was not the Father. This is consistent with what it says right here and with what our Mashiach said, that no one's ever heard the voice of the Father. No man has heard him and lived. All right. But continuing, it says, "In the voice of thunder and of the lightning, and the messengers of the Ruach oath, or spirits of cold and of heat and of winter and of spring," the ones that affect the phenomenon, the laws, and the things that happen during the seasons, which are mentioned in Hanok and literally happen at their appointed times, right? And of the autumn and of summer and of all the Ruach oath of his creatures which are in the Shamayim and on the earth. So all the souls of his creatures, everything that belonged to him, he made right here, this fourth work. That includes every soul of every man, woman, and child that will ever be born. Their soul was made here. And then the ones that were his, the children of Elohim, praised and lauded before him right here, as mentioned is right here and mentions in Job, and it's mentioned in one of the Psalms that are in the Dead Sea Scrolls. Right? But Dalit, all the spirits, and then that lines up with uh well, the fourth person. We'll look it up real quick and then I'll give you the name and the meaning of it. I can't remember off the top of my head right now, so please forgive me. But real quick, I'm gonna pause there and we're gonna look up the letter Dalit. So hold on just one moment. All right, so for the next one here, for the letter Dalit, you can see it is the fourth letter of the Hebrew, and Dalith literally means the door. And it says, see Dalit, Lamed, Tau, so called in allusion to the ancient form of the letter, which was like a flap, a door flap for a tent. Okay, now we got to go to Dalit, Lamed, Tau, and that's about halfway through because the letter Lamed, like the L, is about the middle, right here. Um, a dollop, a drop, right? We're familiar with these. That's where we get this word from in English. That's where it comes from. But there's other relations to that, anyways. The poor class for the Indians to hang down or be poor, right? Da'al is the slave class. I'm just seeing these and I mention it because there's so many words in the Hebrew that have come down and carried over in different ways that we can see it, and it's really a way to be amazed that it's his word is true. His children have been scattered all over the world, and you can find the evidence of it when you take the time to look. It's really amazing. But right here in the middle, you can see Dalet Lamed Tau. The plural is with a wa tau here, or the dual with a yod mem, and it means door or the column of a book. In modern Hebrew, it's the first line of a verse. And then you can see the different related Semitic languages and what it means. But it's related to a door or the change of state, right? It is the fourth letter, literally a door, so-called allusion to its ancient form, right? And again, with the Greek, the delta in mathematics is a change of state. The door is the place, the means of which you have a change of state. And it's through your ruach that we have a change of heart, the change of state. We either have our Creator's Ruach in us, working things towards our benefit, or the adversarial Ruach in us, working things towards our deterrent or detriment. But that is reality. And that lines up with Canaan. Thank you, Sister Rosie, for correcting me there. But this is the PDF or the email I'd sent out. Sister Cindy was kind enough to make a PDF of it or a note of it and put it on this paper. It's where I made a summary of what these things are that you can see and just go over it. But you can't prove it for yourself unless you look these up and you actually see what these words mean. Gimel being the waters to wean a child, what goes out and comes back with your pay, reward, or recompense, right? um, Lined up with Enosh, a man, but in the sense of weak and diseased or mortal. Dalit here is all the Ruach oath that served before him, a door or a decision from one way to another, the column of a book, the first line of a verse. It's a change of state, the free will to make a choice, right? That is the Dalit. And it lines up with Canaan, Cain, which this is the only issue that you'll have, and inevitably you'll come across these things. You won't find any one book that has all the answers. There's no dictionary definitions for every single word, meaning for all their names, for example. I couldn't find it for Cain here. I could not find it for a parkshad, a meaningful dictionary name meaning. But by the favor of Yahuwah, I was able to learn these things. This word in particular came to me from a link from Abram Publications, where they go over breakdowns of a whole bunch of Hebrew words and they go into the meanings, its usages, and they just talk about them. And they happen to do this name, and it had this very meaning to it, all of which fits together with what we're covering. So please bear with me. But it means to fit together, fabricate, dirge or lamentation, the beating of the breast, right? And this is again with the Dalit, like all the spirits that serve before him. You have the choice of being of his or of the adversary, right? It will either be working to fit together in the unity of being in fabrication, or you will fabricate things that you will later lament and cause a beating of the breast or sadness and lamentation. All of that lines up with this fourth work and whether or not we praised him when made. And then in creation, it was in regard to after they were given these things, now it was what they do with it. You had the line of Cain, which went off into apostasy, error, idolatry, and later mixing with watchers and causing all the evil, was responsible and partakers of the flood. And then you had the line of Canaan here, which worked to fit together in righteousness and led to the culmination of Hanok being given the truth, which was the seventh work, part of that seventh work of light in the first day, and that led to Noah and his surviving of the flood. So, and that was in the decisions, the choices before them, and what they chose to do with a free state of mind, with the letter Dalet here. The next one, and we might get to one or two more here. I don't know how much time we have a little bit more, so we might do one more here. But you have the letter Hey, and it is the abysses. This is an interesting one. I'm glad that we get to it because you think about what happened after these things. Men had their choices and they made things, but what happened after that? The watchers came down. They saw men going wayward. They petitioned our Maker to come teach men righteousness, and they were allowed to come do so with all the temptations and weaknesses of men. 200 of them fell to those temptations and caused the giants and the chaos that happened. And that lines up with Hey, what is revealed or made evident, which is the abysses, right? Which, if you recall, the abysses, seven in number, is what the darkness was attached to after the mundane bodies of creation were made. That's mentioned in the recognitions of Clement's creation account, but that helps you get an idea of us being in an enclosed space, the light from the Father emanating down, being blocked by these things, so that darkness was on, yoked to the abysses, but not everywhere. And then he introduced light into the creation in the waters in the firmament, or in underneath the Shamayim, if you will, and then separated them to make light and day, right? But that we're getting beside ourselves here. The letter Hey is like the light through a window. You can see that here. That's what it alludes to. It's what became our letter E. But right here, it's like the light shining through a window.
Said something to me. No.
It's what, as a prefix, it is the. It means the, or it can begin the form of a question, and it's pointing to something. It's enlightening. It's revealing. As a suffix, it means like ha. It's the feminine of something, and it is making it evident or revealing it, if you will. So those are how the Hey is in usage in Scripture. If you give me a moment, I will go to that letter and we will look at it. Oh, went too far. Sorry about that. All right, so right here, the letter Hey is the fifth letter of the alphabet. Its name Hey is of uncertain origin, they say. Um, and then they have different uses. It corresponds to like halak means he went, um,
Looking for.
or alaku is to go, but that's just with the Hey lamed cough on it, right? The he right here means she, who means he, and you can see both of these have the Hey to begin them. It's a revealing of something. And again, it is it's almost the exact same usage as the letter E in English. We use it after the end of a whole bunch of words, but it's the thing that makes it evident. It's really interesting. Even it's the direct pointer. The has the Hey in it, like ha, where it means the. So I don't want to get too belligerent in that. I just think it's a interesting phenomenon. Right here, as a prefix, you can see that they're going over different things. I don't want to get too far into it, but if you're learning the language, depending on the vowel point they use here, it denotes any prefix letters that might be attached as well. So if you have the or I am, or hold on, how did I put that? If you have in the house, where you have two prefixes, the bet, the Hey, and then the word for house, you would use the bait letter for the letter for in, and then you would put the vowel marking for the letter hey, so that you would know, and it would be baha. You wouldn't pronounce the hey, but you would know that it meant in the house, not in house. It would give you the direct object in it, and that's exclusively in use of how the vowels are on the words with the vowel points. It's a phenomenon. It's a phenomenon that was in the language. It's how the language was spoken in classical scriptural Hebrew, but it's only represented with the vowel points today. You don't see it when you're spelling words. They don't put the bet and the hey together. You would just hear it. And they do that a lot with like the Phoenician. You wouldn't spell out the vowels, you would just say the vowel. They do it with modern Hebrew too. They don't even use vowel points in a lot of their writings. They can just read the text and know what vowels are supposed to be supplied. That's the way the language was for a very long time. The way they represented vowels have just changed over time, right? But you can see that it's the definite article, meaning it means the, and it's also an interrogative particle, meaning it forms the beginning of a question. Like when he says, Ha Shamar Achi Anoki, am I my brother's keeper? Is what Cain asked his brother. All he did was say, guard my brother, like, do I guard my brother with a hey in front of it? That hey made it a question. All right. So like I said, it reveals or it makes evident a thing, like light shining in the window reveals the things in the house. And then when you look at the spelling of it, they have it in two different ways. Excuse me. I didn't cover that part. They have it with either a hey aleph or a hey yod sometimes. And I'm not sure which way they spell it here. So we'll look at both. It doesn't say to go see which one. So give me just one moment and we'll look at that. What we really want to do though is when you tie in and look at the word for abysses. So we're going to look at that word in particular too, because that's what really connects these things for this particular work in creation. And one, if you hadn't realized it, all of the 22 works, the letters and what they mean and the work that is being done, this is what Yahushua himself is accomplishing in creation at the time where each of these things are being affected. So he's the one giving the reward for the weaning that happens in relation to the things we do. He's the one that affects the teaching and learning of a man to bring forth domestication, right? He's the one that established our combat to righteousness and working the land to be his pleasant possession and to bring into the house those that are domesticated and trained. That is his work that he's accomplishing through the things that have happened in history, right? This is all about his doings, his works. When it talks about the works of Yahuwah and his wonders are what we're going to praise, acknowledge, worship, sing about. These are the things that are being spoken of, right? All right. This is ha, right? Hey, they say the name of the fifth letter of the alphabet of uncertain origin. They also say that it means lo, behold, like hey, right? Pay attention. And you can see that it's probably from the demonstrative of hey, yod, which is the reverse of yah. Okay. It also means in post-biblical Hebrew, it means this, but it's an interjection to behold. And that's what hey essentially is, to reveal. Okay, I hope you can see that. Now we want to go to tohum really quickly. And tohum is the word for abysses. Tohum is tau, hey, wa, mem. So it's all the way at the end of the book here with the last letter of the alphabet, the letter tau. So tohum, we want tau he. There's Torah right there. But we want tau he, so please forgive me. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm going the wrong way, that's why. Tau he is right here. Oh, there we go. Tohum. So I got right to it. So you see tau, he, wa, mame, or we'd say THOM or UM, tahum. It means depth, deep, abyss, the deep sea or primeval ocean. It's the literally the tohum or the abysses or the mouths of the deep that are seven in nature that were broken up to spew out waters from under the earth as the waters were pouring down from above when the heavens, the windows of the Shamayim opened, and then they broke up and opened to allow the waters to drain out again. Um, what I want to show you in particular is when you break down this word, when you go tohu and then mem. Mem as a suffix, like yod mem, is the plural. It means them. And then tohu as a word is what I would like to show you really quickly. Tohu, you see, it means amazed, but it also is the word for tohu wabohu. When it says that in the beginning, everything was void and empty, that word is tohu. So it literally means them that are empty, the waste, desert, chaos, confusion, vanity, nothingness, worthlessness. It's the waterless desert or trackless wilderness. It's to get lost, to wander about, or went astray, to be astonished and amazed. That's what tohu is about. All right. So when you have the darkness that is created, that is lining up with the abysses that happen to be the tohu, this is what you have. And remember, that's what is revealed or made evident. So it's attached to them. It's them that's attached to emptiness, waste, desert, chaos, confusion, right? It's he got lost, wandered about, went astray. It equals what is revealed and made evident, right? At that time, they were given the truth on what to do, and then it was becoming evident the line of Cain and their apostasy and the watchers leading them astray that came about, because this is what's represented here. And then Mahalalel is what the name of that patriarch was. He was the first one, I believe, after the fourth. If you remember, it says that when we sin or we're disobedient, the iniquities of the fathers are passed down to the third and fourth of those who hate him. So when you go from Adam, Seth, Enosh, Canaan, that's the fourth. The next is Mahalalel, and that means the means or the place of praising El or the praiseworthy El. This is the first one after the inequity where he can no longer be under that inequity. And this is now where he's given the means to see what's attached to worthlessness and wandering astray and what is not, right? And that's the place of praising El. Please note, this is after the third or fourth generation of him that hated him, meaning that since Adam sinned, the pattern is repeated when idolatry is introduced among men, meaning from the times of Nimrod to, or from the times of Eber and Nimrod when they introduced idolatry amongst the line of Shem to the coming of Abram, who repented of it. He was the fourth generation from that time. Um, right here is that same pattern. You have the fourth generation is Mahalalel, and then you have one, two, three, Hanok, and then you have one, two, three, flood, deliverance. The pattern afterwards here, you had that four, then you had Abraham, and then one, two, three with the 12, but they sinned. So then you have that pattern of disobedience, three generations, and then boom, you have the Exodus. But they sinned, you have three generations, boom, then you have their coming out of the time of Judges with bounty. There's continued patterns of this same phenomenon over and over and over again because it's the truth, right? But I want you to see that it's first established right here. And then this is all in what was being made and what was being revealed. Okay. Again, this isn't the literal creation. We know what he made. This is the parable that's showing the things that happened with the watchers and the effectual thing that Yahushua has done, his work in creation in response to it. That's the key. All right. The next one here, we might be able to do one more or even two. We'll finish up with the first day if we can. All right. The next one here is Wa, and it lines up the sixth letter is darkness, evening tide. And they have right here and night, but that's not correct. The Wa being darkness is exclusively by itself. This part right here, again, I didn't know if I mentioned it when we were recording, but there's different translations of the Book of Yobelim. In a critical edition of R.H. Charles, he talks about different manuscripts and the different ways that these are mentioned. Darkness is given its own thing first, and then evening is put with the light. And that's the same thing you see in the Dead Sea Scrolls and Vanderkam's translation of it. So I go by that because evening is part of the light. It's one of the four aspects of it that all tie together. But darkness is its own thing. Darkness is attached to Wa, Wa being the sixth letter. They say that this one is the letter of man, all right? But it's the sixth letter. The idea that it's part of man you won't find anywhere but the allusions in scripture where he puts the peg in a steadfast place and he's going to be the one that all the esteem of his father's house hangs on. That's the illusion of our Mashiach, but that isn't even the word Wa. So um, I don't really put it as man, but even if you looked at it that way, this is fitting because it's the condition man's in while we're in this world. However, this is what's attached to it now. This is what is all hooked together because of the things we've done, and it is the darkness that was accomplished then. When you look at the letter Wa, it is literally a tent peg or a pin, something that hooks together, right? People have disagreements about different things, but you put the thing in the ground and you tie a rope to it to secure it. It was something that you would attach something to. Hopefully we can see that real quick. But that ties into what is our current condition, what is connected to us at this time. Aleph, Bet, Gimel, Dalet, Wa, excuse me. And just to be perfectly candid, not every letter, just like not every man's name has a definition in here, a Parkshad is another one. Canaan's name I found in the Abrams publications. A Parkshad's name I actually found in a book called The Maseroth by a gentleman named Francis Roslin. He wrote it in the 1800s about the constellations and how it talks about the good news and a whole bunch of other things. One of the things he mentioned is the patriarchs from Adam to Yaakov and how it lines up with the constellations and the meanings of their names and then different stars. In there, he gives the meaning of a parkshad as a congregation assembled, which is perfectly in line with what is in this foretelling. But I've never found where the source for that was outside of what he said. There are things like that that we have to keep in mind, but that's where you look for secondary witnesses to confirm things. And when you don't have one, you put it on a shelf. Well, this is what we know, and if things come otherwise, we have to regard it. Now you can see right here, the Wa is the sixth letter, and it means a hook or a peg. It says, see the wah wah, which I just saw, but we'll look at it again. And it alludes to the ancient form of the letter, right? It's not some mystical meanings for things, but it's just what the letter of the shape represented. As a prefix, it means it's a conjunction. It means and, but, therefore, as, since, seen, while, whatever can conjoin two clauses together. The wah does that, no matter what it is. People are free with their use of it. Some people tend to try to just put and, okay? You can also see that it turns the future tense into past tense. So it can change the tense of a word in certain uses. And this might help explain the phenomenon of how we get W's in front of certain words in English. Whether or not it's because of this phenomenon or not, I can't say for sure. But right here, you have the wah with the two wahs. It means a hook or peg, and it's what you would attach or connect things with, right? And then you can see it's the sixth letter of the spelling. That one lines up with Yarad. There we go. I'm sorry. I forgot to look up the name for the other one here, but Yarad or Jared, as they call him, um, is Yod Resh Dalet, and it means he will come down. This one's the ones that's talking about, like I said, the watchers, the darkness, and I messed up for a minute, so you gotta let me back up real quick. But let me finish this one. This is the one with the watchers coming down. So that was um, that was my fault. Give me 1 second. Yod, and again, this is just proof that I'm a man and I make mistakes. I actually said something that was inaccurate, not because I meant to, but because I was getting ahead of myself. So please forgive me. So, anyways, Yod Resh Dalet is what we're looking for. Tet is the letter right before Yod. Now we're in the Yod, and that's a Dalet. Yod Cheth, that was a Chad. There's the Ayin. Here's the Kof. So we're close. After the Q is the R, and here we go. That's Yod, Resh, and Dalet. So Yarad right here. Let's see if there's another use of it here. On the bottom, there is not. Okay. So you see, Jared or Yarad means to come down or go down, to descend, okay, to go down. And the Yardan, the Jordan, if you will, is to come down from Dan. That's where the waters flowed from, was where Dan had put their tributary and their city in the north there. But anyways, you can see that it means to descend or come down. Now, to back up real quick here, the letter Hey was the abysses, and it shows that those that are attached to ignorance, being lost and going astray. And that was where it became evident that there were people like Cain's children that were going into error, as opposed to the ones that were repentant based on the choices that they make here. So then you're able to praise your maker for seeing those things and turning to the truth, right? And that was what his name represents and the pattern that you see like that. Wa being the darkness, which was man's current condition, pinned or fixed in place until freed by the light, which is like the peg, and that represents Yarad, or he will come down. Man, so for the watchers being sent to teach men righteousness. But 200 went apostate and caused the giants, monsters, and all the evils still plaguing us today. All the things that happened right here are what demons still manifest in people today. The wars, the evils, the putting on makeup to seduce men, perverting truth in other manners. It's all mentioned in the book of Enoch, but that is the darkness that is attached to our conditions that we're freed by the light of revelation. Okay? Which was, you get the hay here, the beginnings of it. And then the fullness is in the Zion, which we're going to cover in just a moment. The last work here, that we'll get for today, and hopefully this will be a step in the right direction that you guys can start doing this for yourself. I've already mentioned that the second day being the Chait lines up with the flood, and the Chait is literally the living creatures that were put into the ark with him. Chet Yod Tau. They'll tell you that's not a word in Hebrew. It won't show it in the dictionary or in the Strongs that way, but you can see it spelled that way in as living creatures in the Hebrew in the scriptures itself when you look. And it might be in Ernest Klein's dictionary, but we're probably not going to get to that one. So Zion is the light, dawn, evening, or I'm sorry, it's the light, day, because day was called light, and then evening and dawn, or evening and morning, which is exactly what it says in Bereshit Genesis. He introduced the light, he separated it between the light and between the darkness. He called the light day, he called the darkness night, and the evening and the morning are part of the first day. All of that is plainly mentioned, and that's what's alluded to right here as well. There's a fourfold aspect to light. You have light being the day, which includes the evening and the morning. And all of this is what he prepared in the knowledge of his heart. With his heart's intention, he did these things. Now, the Zion, as a word, we'll look at real quick, but it means a weapon. Zion, Yod, Nun. And the light is like a weapon. It's a two-edged sword, as it calls it, but this one has a fourfold aspect, if you will. Although light being day is of itself just the nature of it. In the sense of foretelling, these things are part of what's being shown here, but it's all part of the same aspect. The fact that it's twofold, that there is a beginning and an end edge there is like the two-edged sword, which is like a weapon, which is what you see exactly with the word Zion. But it's also our weapon that we can battle darkness and evil with. Do we keep the seventh day? Are we Zioning in the light right there? There's a lot involved in it. Um, we don't have time to do all of that. That's the one problem, if there is a problem with such things, is you can never have enough time to look at all the nuances of what every little piece could possibly mean. There's always more you can learn. There's always new things to be discovered because man is finite and our creator is not. All right, so there we go. Here's the Zion. And then I'm sorry, did you have something?
That smell. What was that?
All right, never mind. There's the Zion Chait. I'm almost there. Please forgive me. All right, Zion Yod, and then we want the noon. So here we go. Here's the word Zion. Zion Yod Noon.
Hey, Richard,
Yes, brother.
we're we're gonna we're gonna take off.
All right, brother. I'm gonna wrap this one up, and then we'll finish with the seventh, and we'll say prayers. But shalom, brother. All right, so here we have Zion. It represents arms or weapon, but you see they say post-biblical Hebrew, right? It's the name of the seventh letter, alluding to the ancient form of it, right? The Zed or Zeta they have. And that's actually called a Z in English still today. But you see, it means to arm or to equip with arms, as in he armed himself or he has a weapon. It's also to adorn or ornament. So you ornament yourself or you adorn yourself with the light. All right. And then that lines up with the patriarch Chanok, which means to be dedicated or trained. And the light, yom, evening and morning, which he prepared in the knowledge of his heart, equals the arms or weapons that we are adorned with or decorated, so that we can be dedicated and trained like Hanok, who was shown all things or revealed the light and comprehended what he was shown He witnessed it to men of his age and until the end of the ages, and also the righteous sentence against Adam and Cain. So you had the evening, the judgments against them, and the future resurrections promised, which would be the morning or Boker that would be after that. And all of that is representative in that last work. So, Ob willing, you can see that, and I didn't do it justice again. You can really dig in and take more time for each nuance, every word in the sentence, really dig into it, and you'll learn more. But you can see in the first week here, and it goes through, we've covered every day in this. I'll let you look at it. You can pause and check it out. But um, it covers every work that our Mashiach is doing through the ages until the millennial reign. His will, his effectual thing in creation that we need to regard and do what it says in his word about. So, the importance of it, I hope, is obvious to you. But other than that, you all have a great day. Shabbat shalom, Shavua tov, and we will see you next time. I have to stop recording, so please forgive me.